I just lost all of my recording material, and now I have to start over again. Oh. Okay. So, because I don't know how to angle and light, I am going to be using the first half of the video to focus on this camera angle, and then the second half of the video to work on this camera angle. Why? Because I don't know angling or lighting. I'm also going to try with my flashlight on and off. We'll see what happens. Welcome, readers! My name is Alistair, your host for today, and in honor of Pride Month, I wanted to bring you guys 3 books that you should read during Pride Month. For those who don't know what Pride Month is a special month out of the year where the LGBTQ community is represented for facing the challenges and the oppression that they faced over the years, especially in the United States of America. A good example of these challenges is the story of Stonewall Riot. You can do extra research if you want, but the gist of it is that there was once a gay bar that was raided by police that escalated quickly by becoming very violent because the police were trying to arrest a lot of the citizens in the gay bar, which in fact was called the Stonewall Bar, I believe. Double check me if I'm wrong. But at the end, the citizens that were at the bar actually ended up fighting back against the police, which created a statement that, and I think not long after that is when gay marriage ended up becoming legal in the United States of America. And for all the straight people who are like, oh, where's my Pride Month? Where's my month? I'm gonna set it to you straight. You don't get one because straight people have never had to fight for their right to marry the opposite gender. There's never been a law saying that you can't. You've never been oppressed for that. And to spread more awareness and overall represent the LGBTQ community today, I have brought to you 3 books in which, in my belief, have some really good, very connecting, very hot, steamy, spicy romance with great plots, loving stories, and queer characters that actually feel real and relatable to your audience. An audience that you can connect with instead of just fetishizing queer romances and putting them on a pedestal, which is what I feel like a lot of queer books do, and I wanted to move away from that. Starting with an amazing book called Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuinston. It's probably my first queer romance that I've ever read. I think it's probably one of my favorites. In basics, it's all about the son of the newly elected president of the United States, Alexander Claremont Diaz, and he falls in love with the son of the Queen of England, Prince Henry of Wales. It starts off with what many consider to be the best book trope ever, enemies to lovers romance. And the book leads with her main character, Alex, who ends up actually hating Henry for quite literally one of the dumbest reasons in history. I'm not even kidding. It's pretty stupid. But one day, the royal family invites the president and his son, and her son, out to fly out to England for a party, a ceremony maybe a coronation, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't read this book in a little while. And of course, Alex thinking the way he does, he thinks it's a backlash, like Henry's just being kind of snarky. And then, while at the party, they get into a bit of a cake quarrel. I don't want to spoil too much, but if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go read the frickin' book. And the paparazzi and the media start getting on it. And eventually, everyone thinks, oh, this is a very unofficial declaration of war that the United States has against England. So now, Alex and Henry have to pretend to be friends and show that the cake quarrel was what they had. It was just a fun little joke that they played on each other, even though they really, really, really hate each other. And even though the media hasn't seen them together all that much, they're supposedly really great friends. And then they ended up start hanging out when the cameras aren't around, which turns into something better. A lot better, that I get really excited about. And then things start getting a little more real, a little more spicy tension. They start texting, and it starts escalating, like really, really escalating. What I love about the book is that it's not only Alex trying to navigate his emotions for this guy that he's convinced himself that he hates, but it's also about Henry learning that he needs to accept himself, even though who he truly is may not be what the public idolizes him as. Or his mother. Or if you watch the movie, it's his father, and they chastise him for it once their secret love affair gets out going to the public. And they have to face those feelings together, even if in the end it may or may not break them apart. That's why I really like this book. I feel like that is probably one of the biggest messages that I can take towards the end of it, is that you have to be able to find yourself even if other people will not accept you. Don't come out if it's not safe, but it's okay to internally accept yourself even if others don't. It's a great, adorable, sexy book that's all about self-discovery, navigation, and acceptance. I highly recommend it, 10 out of 10. Now, the next book I want to show is called One Last Stop. Is that? Yeah. One Last Stop, also by Casey McQuinston. And it's not exactly similar to that one. This one is kind of like an everyman trope, but it's a lesbian love story following two females with a little bit of magic in it, if you will. The main character, August, has just moved in from New York, trying to find out what she wants to be and how she's going to get there. And she has this typical daily job that she has to get on the subway every day for work, and that's where she meets Jane. And oh my god, Jane. Jane's great. I love Jane. Jane is Jane, right? Anyone whose name is Jane out there, Jane. And Jane is essentially just a nice girl to chat with on the subway, with her in the mornings. But of course, she notices something very special about Jane. Like, Jane's got this, electric magic thing going on with her. And while August is at work, she notices one of those time-lapse videos. So, you know those photos that you see in front of, Waffle House, where it's a photo from the 1990s to the 2000s to 2010 to 2015? It's basically that in her job. And she notices in one of the photos that Jane was working there, and she looks the exact same age that she looks in the subway now. Which makes no sense if this photo was taken in the 1990s, and it's now 2020. And with that, she starts to put pieces together that Jane is the only one on the subway who she sees every day, both going into her job and coming out of her job. It's like Jane doesn't leave the subway. And of course, them seeing, it escalates into just a really cute romance, and this is another really good book that Casey McQuinston has written. And what I like about Casey McQuinston is that she's really good about writing more intimate scenes, making them feel like they matter, and it's not just thrown in there. It's there to advance the plot. And I think she makes it not a crucial plot point into the story where if you skip it, you have no idea what's going on. But it's all, you can flip through the pages if you don't want to read it. And then it's like, oh, that's why this was important. But you don't need to know the exact details in it. And understandably, but it's not like these scenes consume the story in general. And I know Casey McQuinston hasn't written a lot of books. I think she's a newly published author. These are the only two books she has written. I think she's coming out with a third one called The Pairing. I could be wrong about that, but I'm 90% sure. But I can say with confidence that the two books she has written are very good, very relatable. They feel, again, I'm going to say this word a lot, they feel real. And I feel like that's one of the most important parts in a book. These two books set a very good precedent for the books that she will probably write in the future. speaking of the future, I also wanted to touch up on what probably might be the future of reading. That's fine. Fix it. Fix. I also wanted to touch up on what might possibly become the future of reading digital books, which means Wattpad books. Yes, I know what you're all saying, probably shouting at me in the comments, getting on. Yeah, I get it. I'm a Wattpad reader. And I'm typically very judgy with digital books, just because a lot of people tend to see them as not as well written, which is fair, especially Wattpad books. Especially. Again, fair. But the third book is actually called Mark Me Yours. The other, and the writer's Wattpad name is Deadpeopleflowers. And yes, it is the Omegaverse. With a lot of spite. It follows our main character, whose name is Ryan Neal, and he's part of the 1% of the Omega male population. Yeah. Actually, and I know in some books they are portrayed as very high-class characters, because, like high-class people, because, like, dainty, delicate, fragile, things like that, and it's like, bruh, you create life. Anyone who can create life, I'm gonna tell you right now, that's a pretty frickin' incredible thing to do. So shout out to all of those people. And, of course, while he's at the store, the most generic place to fall in love, he ends up meeting a doctor whose name is Scott, and who I actually think he's a really good character. And, yes, and if you're not a big fan of these kinds of books, Ryan, by accident, lights off some pheromones. And look, I understand if you're not a big fan of these kinds of books, and if you're not, that's completely okay. You can go ahead and click off or skip to the timestamp. Skip to said timestamp. Wait. Ryan ends up forgetting his meds and starts letting off pheromones in the grocery store. And Scott, being a doctor and an alpha, needs to, obviously after that, he checks up on Ryan, they exchange numbers, just make sure that he's okay, like the sweet alpha he is. And I don't want to see this book, I want to see how this book also, I like how this book also shows a lot of the hardships and show parallels between people who are seen as weak or less powerful than some people, who are not strong people and who are considered delicate, what a lot of people consider women. And I'm not saying that from my perspective women are weak. I'm saying that from a societal perspective, people clearly treat women differently, and it's generally not okay. And I understand that lots of people won't like this just because it is Wattpad, but I do think this is one of the better Wattpad stories. It's got actual meaning to it, because it's not only, like, generally is written well, it has good grammar, but the characters are created to have such a human emotional bond, and Scott is very helpful with helping Ryan through many lawsuits that he's had injuries due to unfair treatment in his work environment, which I'm sure many people can relate to, and And if you don't want to feel alone during the hardships, it shows that if you don't want to feel alone during the hardships, there are people here to help you and to back you up and support you whenever you need it. So yeah, those are pretty much the 3 books I have. I'm sure some of them are probably a lot better than others, but tell me what your guys' choice is. And decide it in the comments, and come back and let me know what you think. And let me know if you have any other books that you want me to touch up on. Please remember to stay hydrated and get enough sleep. Thank you so much for watching, readers, and I will see you in the next review. Bye! Happy readings!